Hi! Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to. Thank you so much for being here today. So today, I'm bringing you a massive quarantine book haul. These are books that I have been accumulating since, January, February, the beginning of the year. And I've really been putting off this video because it's extremely daunting. It's a lot of books, 42, I counted. But I'm finally sitting down and getting to it. I'm just gonna get straight into it. 42 books. Let's go. So the first book that I have today is Outlander. I feel like a bit of a fraud because I've said that my favorite genre is romance, historical fiction, yet I've never read Outlander. I've seen the TV show. It's my favorite show, point blank, period. So I'm very excited. I have the audiobook with this, so I'm going to be reading along while I listen. For those of you who don't know, Outlander is about Claire. She gets transported back to the 1700s Highland location and just needs to figure out how to assimilate and survive. She meets Jamie Fraser. The epic romance ensues. I love the show, love the characters. I'm so excited to dive into this, but she a thick girl. The second book that I have is Little Weirds by Jenny Slate. I found this one through TikTok, as many do. Someone had quoted it in one of their TikToks and I was like, whoa, that's deep. So I decided to get this. I don't know too much about it. I believe it's just a memoir. I think I thought it was a poetry book when I bought it. Don't we love those happy surprises? Next, I have Red, White, and Royal Blue. If you haven't heard of this, I don't know where you've been. This has been all over BookTube, my Goodreads, my Instagram. It's everywhere. This is a story about the Crown Prince of England, and the President of the United States' son. Something happens and they have to pretend to be friends or like really good buddies. It's a true, I think, enemies to lovers kind of romance. Next on my book haul is Little Fires Everywhere. This is a book that was just made into a TV show starring Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington. It was on Reese Witherspoon's book club as well. This follows two families in a small town and their secrets, and that's about it. That's about like all you can tell surface level, but it was really good. I gave it about, I think, 3.7 or 4 out of 5 stars. I really like this, and I cannot wait to watch the TV show because I love Reese and I love Carrie. So excited. All right, next book I have, I think this is book 5? Book 5 is My Sister, the Serial Killer. This is about two sisters. One goes on dates with boys, and then kills them. The other cleans up after her, make sure they don't get caught. Yeah. And I think the plot thickening in this moment, in this book, is when a boy that the cleanup sister likes asks for the serial killer sister's number. I think there's some loyalty being tested, family ties, what have yous, but I am very excited to read this. I've heard great things, and I just really like this cover. I love the green, and I love the detail of there are knives. English. There are knives in these sunglasses, which I think was a cool little detail. The next book that I have for you guys is A Woman Is No Man. This is a generational story as well as dual perspective, I believe. Yes, dual perspective. It follows Dea as she is introduced to potential suitors from her family for marriage and goes back and forth as we look at Dea's situation as well as her mother Isra's back in the day. She was put into an arranged marriage and moved from Palestine to New York City. And it's just like the similarities and differences between their two stories. The next book that I have is an educational book. It is Hood Feminism. I have the audiobook for this as well, which I believe is narrated by Mickey Kendall, who's the author. I love, love, love books that are narrated by their authors. I think it's just such a cool added element because they know exactly what they meant emotionally when they wrote the words that they were writing. But this is one that I will be listening to and annotating as I am on a journey of unlearning, self-educating myself on racism and racist ideas in the United States, as well as just in general. The next book that I have, I don't know actually too much about it, but I did have a friend who read it and then said that it was amazing and just kind of a life-changing book. It is Untamed. This was on Reese's Book Club as well. You might see a trend there. I like a lot of the books that she uses. But from what I know, this is a nonfiction memoir sort of book about a woman rediscovering her own voice and passions as she kind of takes a journey to rediscovering her inner desires, period. I think this is so interesting. This was part of, I got actually 3 hardcover books for like the price of one, all used, but like in perfect condition. I am obsessed. I think this is just like such a cool dust cover. I just think it's so intriguing. It's just like, I just love this. I love the color. I think it's so pretty. But yes, Untamed, can't wait to read this. I think we're on book 9 now, and that is Stay With Me. I bought this book because it sounded juicy. It sounded like there was drama, and I was here for it. This is a story of a couple who are trying to conceive and are struggling with trying to have a baby. And then the man goes out and gets another wife. So you can see there's some tension, some jealousy there. And the first wife becomes very jealous and she will basically do anything to get pregnant. And the book just says that the cost may be greater than she had ever perceived or thought it could be. The next book that I got is Age of Consent. This is a story about 3 girls who are just coming of age. I believe it's set in New York City, and it's just their coming of age story about, you know, relationships, their parents, growing up as teens, etc. I thought it sounded interesting. The next book that I have in my book haul is one that I will be doing a buddy read-in on in September. It is The Silence of Bones. I first heard about this from, I think it's Fictional Fates, Readathon TBR list. I thought it sounded interesting. This is a story of, it's a historical fiction first, but this is a story of a young girl who is an indentured servant to the police, and she is working alongside an investigator on the murder of a noblewoman. And the plot thickening in this story is when the investigator she was working with becomes the prime suspect of the murder. Her loyalties are tested. Who is she to believe? What is she to do? etc. But yes, I'm very excited to be reading this along with a friend. It's last book of the first pile. This is Clap When You Land. This is a story of two girls and two families as they find out after their father's death that their father had an entire secret family. One lives in the Dominican Republic and one lives in, I think it's either Brooklyn or just the greater New York City area. But I'm very excited. I got this secondhand, and the real reason, one of the reasons that I got this was are you kidding me? I'm obsessed with this. I think this is just like genius marketing. Absolutely love this. The next book I have is a poetry book, and this is Aphrodite Made Me Do It. If you watched my August TBR, you would have seen this book. It is on it. I'm hoping to finish it before the end of the month. This is a book that uses the Greek goddess Aphrodite to kind of weave through the past and the present. It deals with self-healing and self-love, and I just thought it sounded really interesting. It looks really pretty. There are photos as well in it, and I just thought, why not? The next book I have is also on my August TBR. It is Take a Hint, Dani Brown. If you know, you know. This book has been everywhere. It is the second book in a series, but it's a standalone book within it. You don't have to read the first one. This is about Dani Brown, a hot bodyguard, a fake relationship, an attempt at being friends with benefits, and there's romance. I'm excited. I cannot wait to read this. I've said it and I'll say it again. I've heard nothing but great things about this, and I am a sucker for a rom-com book. Here we go. The next book that I have was a winner of the Pulitzer Prize. I just recently collected this one. It is The Nickel Boys. I feel like this is going to be quite possibly a life-changing book. It is a book that follows, I believe his name is Elwood, as he is sentenced to a reformatory school, but it's really just a House of Horrors type of deal. And this is based on not a true story, but it's based on a reformatory school that was in Florida that operated for 111 years. I am very excited to read this. That's all I have to say. The Nickel Boys. The next book that I have is A Man Called Ovi. The premise sounds a little boring, but it has great reviews on Goodreads, and a lot of people, when they found out that I had purchased this, came and were like, I love this. This was so amazing. The premise is just, it's a story about a grumpy old man and I believe his new eccentric neighbors that move in. I wonder what book we're on. I don't know. I haven't been keeping track. I have not been counting. The next book that I have is Daisy Jones and the Six. This was also one of Reese Witherspoon's book club picks. This is the story of Daisy and the Six, and it's a rock and roll fiction book about kind of their journey to becoming one of the most popular bands ever, I think. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm really excited. I was watching some video and someone was like, you have to read this along with the audiobook. It's amazing, blah, 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 blah. And so I also have the audiobook for this. I think it'll be interesting because from my experience with full cast audiobooks, it's just like this extravagant, full production kind of deal. And it doesn't really feel like a book sometimes. It feels like a play or a podcast, something of that sort. And, I'm here for it. I love that. So yeah, Daisy Jones and the Six, very excited. The next book that I have is one that I have already read. It is Evicted. This was for a book club that I am in. It is a nonfiction book that follows 5 families in Milwaukee in the early 2000s, late 1990s. And it just discusses the housing situation of that time and kind of throughout the United States. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very informative and eye-opening about groups of people and people in general who are living at or below the poverty line and struggle with housing and the way that the system is created and formed, and how it just like doesn't work or doesn't see the people that it is working against. I really enjoyed this book. If you want to read something and learn something about the United States and one of its major systems, highly recommend. The next book I have is a classic, and I'm going to say it now because I'm definitely going to say it again. I have not read a lot of the classic novels that books for generations now have mentioned or have replicated. I just haven't read them. So the next book is Wuthering Heights. Never read this. One of the most classic doomed love stories to exist. This follows Heathcliff and Catherine, one of those 2 names. And it's just like their doomed love. My brother-in-law got me this, and I just really want to read it. It's been on my shelf for a while, so I'm hoping to read it before the end of the year, though. Fingers crossed. Hi, it's Editing Logan. So, at the beginning, I said that this was a 42 book haul. I've decided to make it into 2 parts. So this is part 1, just because the video was like an hour. That's a long video. So yes, this is part 1. Part 2 will be coming, and I'll just kind of pick up where I left off. All right, bye.